Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, Matthew Dickerson. How are you today?
I'm very good, thanks, Rod. How are you going?
Good. Tell me about the transition to zero emissions fleet.
Well, this is a really interesting one. Steve Colliver is our fleet manager, and he does a fantastic job of making sure we squeeze every last dollar out of our fleet and make sure it runs incredibly efficiently. We have been having discussions, it's fair to say, a number of years now, even back when I was mayor last time, about the possibility of introducing some electric vehicles into our fleet. Now, you're getting some electric vehicles in some small trucks, in some larger trucks, garbage trucks, and in light vehicles. And Steve's been keeping an eye on all of those to see when might be the appropriate time. He's been doing a fair bit of research over the last few months, and that research has shown that even though the ticket price of certain EV models is dearer than an equivalent petrol model, when you actually look at the total cost of ownership, so that's all the petrol costs or electricity costs and the running costs, the maintenance costs and the resale value, there are various organisations out there that will do these calculations and give you all the latest data. Steve's been keeping an eye on those, and he's then brought a report to council that basically recommended that staff, and there are 68 light vehicles in our fleet, staff that have got a light vehicle as part of their package have got certain cars they can choose. The recommendation was that those staff, when it comes time to renew those cars, should have the ability to choose from a limited selection of electric vehicles, given the fact the total cost of ownership is actually going to be less than those equivalent petrol vehicles. So that's pretty exciting, because in the past, if you were a staff member that had time to it was time to renew your vehicle, then there were certain petrol vehicles you could choose from. You had no choice to look at it. You couldn't even pay extra. If you said, I really believe in electric vehicles and they're the future, I want to pay extra, you didn't even have that option. Now, staff will be able to look at certain options there. And again, I can't stress enough to the ratepayer that Steve's calculations show that the cost of the ratepayer is no more. In fact, actually, it will be less. And if you read the report, it's actually quite surprising how much less some of those electric vehicles are to run. So this is pretty exciting. We lead by example from our councillors. The mayor's vehicle's electric. We've got a councillor driving an electric vehicle. So that's fantastic. But seeing electric vehicles amongst the staff, I think that'll show real leadership, and you'll see people start to transition in the community based on the fact that council's doing it as well.
And if it all is cost effective and even better than petrol or diesel, that's the way to go.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Now, tell me about the 3D printed housing in the Dubbo.
Well, a few months ago, one of our councillors, Matt Wright, brought forward a motion to council to set aside 4 blocks of land in a land development for council next year, specifically for 3D printed housing. And the interest out of that was incredible. In fact, I was on a plane recently, I picked up the Qantas magazine, and here's a story in the Qantas magazine about Dubbo going ahead with 3D printed housing. So I thought that was fascinating. And we've had about 8 different companies from literally around the world contact Dubbo and talk about the fact they want to do some 3D printed housing. It's not really up for us to choose it. That's a separate process. They'll be able to buy a block of land and print a 3D house on there. What we are doing, though, is we're actually going out for tender for an amenity block that we need to upgrade, and actually saying that it specifically has to be using a 3D printed technique. An amenity block's a lot easier than a house, but that's a great opportunity for one of those companies to show off their technology, and we believe it'll be done cheaper and faster than traditional methods. One of the interesting parts about all of that is that there are regulatory issues. We have to approve any building that needs to be able to be built in Dubbo, so we need to make sure there are some processes in place. 3D printed houses are a bit new, so we actually had one of our staff go through and investigate it, make sure that under the building codes it was all going to comply, make sure the regulatory issues were fine, and basically the report said, yes, there is nothing stopping a 3D printed house from being approved through the normal processes. It needs to comply with all the normal standards, etc. But basically that opened the door for various companies that want to do 3D printed anything in Dubbo to be able to submit their applications, comply to all the regulations, and then if it all complies, there's no reason that we won't give approval for those to be built. So that's pretty exciting to progress that next step.
Certainly is. A very progressive council, the Dubbo Regional Council. Now, tell us about the draft precinct plan for the Northwest Urban Release area.
This is going to be a huge area. If we look back in Dubbo, in 20 years' time, we will be blown away by the number of people living there. The estimation is maybe somewhere in the vicinity of 15,000 people. And for those not exactly sure where we're talking about here, if you were at the Sarisia Bridge and looked northwest, it's generally that area there we're talking about. It's a huge area there, and again, there'll be a lot of blocks developed there. What we want to do is we want to progress that. Well, first of all, we're going to just show the precinct plan in general to show the sort of zoning, the sort of planning that we've got there. And then we want to progress that with some help from some government funding to start to put some infrastructure in the ground there and use some of council's money as well, so that that can all happen much quicker, because we have this huge housing need in Dubbo. Everyone wants to move to Dubbo, which is fantastic, but they need somewhere to live. So this is all part of that. We're actually putting in grant application in the New South Wales Government's Accelerated Infrastructure Fund Round 3, and essentially that will help us put all that infrastructure in the ground. But more importantly, we're just trying to show the community what that whole precinct area looks like, what that plan looks like, and we hope that people will be interested in that, and also looking at developments not owned by council that are further afield from those, so ones that basically will use that to join into Dubbo. But when you start to look at the plans around Dubbo for the various release areas, for various expansion, you start to see just how big Dubbo will be in, again, not that long a time frame.
And what's it looking like at the moment? What's the flow on the Macquarie around Dubbo?
It's not too bad at the moment. The bit of rain we had over the last couple of days, we were a little bit concerned about. It's high flow in the Macquarie still. Our pedestrian bridges are still underwater. In fact, I went for a look down at one just yesterday, and you can't even see the bridge. This is the Tamworth Street pedestrian bridge. You can't see the bridge there. You can see a little bit of build-up of some debris there, but that's really just an indication that there's something underneath there and there is a bridge, but you can't see it. But at least the Sarisia Bridge, which is an important one from a road perspective, that one hasn't gone under and doesn't look to go under with the forecast of rains over the next couple of weeks. Not to say that it won't go under at some point in the future, but at this stage it seems like it's all safe. And we know from 2010, if the Sarisia Bridge goes under and that's closed, the congestion across the LH Ford Bridge is incredible. It can take you over an hour to get across that bridge. So at this stage, that's all okay. Still, I would call it minor to moderate flooding. I'm not sure what the official term at the moment from the Bureau is, but that's the way I'd look at it. It's a bit annoying. You can't go and use Truckarolli Sockaway the way you'd like to. There's a little bit of mud on there in certain places, but in general, it's not affecting the flow of traffic, which is the important part.
Speaking with Matthew Dickinson, Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, and it's just around a month to the Dream Festival.
Yeah, we had basically a temporary road closure go through council on Wednesday night, and so that is designed to close down Talbot Street from Bligh Street to Victoria Park on Saturday the 22nd of October between 8 and 8:45 p.m. So that's all to do with the Lantern Parade, and that's a huge thing, the Lantern Parade. The number of people that come along to that is incredible, and it does look spectacular with all those lanterns going along there. That was just more or less a procedural process to go through the steps to actually close that road for that time frame. They've made application, and then that application is being processed through council, and that's a way of informing the public that that will be closed. Again, we resolved to do that on Wednesday night, so that's really that part of that process. But it's also a great opportunity to talk about Dream and about a number of events that will happen around Dream during that October time frame. So all very exciting and absolutely looking forward to it. I think many of the community are looking forward to it.
Should be a great event for Dubbo again. Pulls lots of people from the west to it. I thank you for your time today.
My pleasure, Rod. Good to be chatting.